people who walk away from a breakup with the least sense of closure, without a sense of closure, are also the people who are probably the least likely to get it from their ex, which is why it is so incredibly important to understand that closure can be a one-way street. What I mean by that is when you have two securely attached people going through a breakup, they usually do walk away with a sense of closure and understanding. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have pain and grief, but they are able to, both parties are able to articulate the fundamental incompatibilities or the reasons why they are no longer in a relationship. When we're talking about an insecurely attached dynamic, both parties are probably going to walk away without understanding. And when I say both parties, obviously that includes the person who's initiating the breakup. And the reason that this is happening is because in a lot, and not all, but in a lot of insecurely attached breakups, the person precipitating the breakup, well, both parties, but starting with the person precipitating the breakup, they are acting out of a subconscious place. So they're not acting out of a place of conscious reasoning and logic. They're usually acting out of a survival instinct in their nervous system. So for a lot of them, that's going to be maladaptive strategies like deactivation and, disassociation. And the result of that is going to seem diabolically cold, but they're not thinking in a clear, rational way. They're really thinking much more from that primal reptilian brain. And because of that, they're not able to, nor do they necessarily have the tools to be able to articulate why they're really ending the relationship. Or if they do articulate something, it's probably not going to be make sense to the other person because the other person has been perceiving them without understanding, of course, their subconscious fears. And then often this kickstarts the recipient of the breakup to start acting out of their subconscious wounds and maladaptive strategies. And the majority of my clients are more anxiously attached. So in this dynamic, in this scenario, they are the ones who are going to probably go into, whereas the avoidant is probably going to go into freeze and flee. The anxiously attached person might go into fight, increasing the volume, really poking the person, sort of like maybe following them around to get answers, or saying, fine, like that's fine, whatever, and walking away, and then coming back and wanting to get that validation, reassurance. Or they may shut down and freeze a little bit because of the shock of the breakup, but then once the two part ways, that's where they will start to that reptilian place will sort of manifest as calling them a lot of times, or stalking them on social media, or that type of thing. Anything that they can do to attempt reconnecting with the person, even if it's not a healthy strategy. So what you really end up with is two people trying to end a relationship when they're in a sympathetic nervous system state, which is fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which is not a place from which we can really talk through things. And again, sometimes we don't even have the skills, whereas secure people are typically going to go through a breakup more in their parasympathetic nervous system. So I think understanding that is one of the reasons, understanding the dynamics, going to hopefully help you understand why you walked away feeling so confused and why you didn't have closure. But I also hope it will invite the perspective of, is there a way I can create closure for myself? Because the truth is, closure can be a one-way street by recognizing that for whatever the reason is, there's obviously a fundamental incompatibility with the relationship. Even if we're just talking about that moment in time, we don't worry about, could we fix it? Could we reconcile? Could we do the work? In that moment, clearly there was a fundamental incompatibility and it wasn't working. And that really can be the closure that you need. And if we try to look for closure in the other person, we are going to keep finding, again, sneaky excuses to reconnect with them and try to get answers from them that they're probably never going to be able to give you. We'll just keep kicking the can, moving the goalposts, and we have to make the decision for ourselves to say, you know what, I can't understand this other person's brain, but I can understand that it obviously wasn't working, and I will grieve that and not confuse that with the grief. I'm not saying that you should walk away from it being like, wiping your hands and saying, I'm good because I have closure. Or I'm going to create closure for myself. The grief is still going to be there, for sure. But that's very, very different than the suffering that comes from thinking that we need to get some kind of answer from another person.